So a few months back, I made a video where I installed needle bearings into the front steering spindles of this Husqvarna garden tractor behind me here. The link to that video can be found down in the description. And it's what a lot of people refer to as the poor man's power steering. And it did actually improve the steering response, at least while the tractor is moving. And when I published that video, I got a lot of comments where people were telling me that I should go ahead while I'm at it and replace the bushings in the front wheels with ball bearings. And that will decrease the rolling resistance of the front wheels. That'll also help to improve the steering response, again, while the tractor is moving. So I'm going to take that advice. It's not very difficult to do, and it's not too expensive. So that's what today's video is about. It's starting to rain, so I'm going to go ahead and take the tractor here, get it into the shop, and we'll get started. So beyond simply reducing the amount of steering effort, there's another reason why I started looking into replacing the washers and bushings in the front end of the mower here with needle bearings and ball bearings. Let me show you. So this is a garden tractor model, which means that it comes with larger wheels and tires and a larger, heavier commercial grade V-twin engine, which means that relative to Husqvarna's lawn tractor models, it's going to be putting more strain and stress on the steering components. Despite this, Husqvarna is using the same part number for this steering plate here and the pinion gear between the lawn tractor models and this heavier duty garden tractor. And I actually started noticing wear on this pinion gear pretty soon after I bought the tractor. And I was hoping that upgrading to needle bearings and to ball bearings here in the wheels would help to reduce friction in the steering and may help to prolong the life of these gears here, because these don't look like they're very fun to replace. I'm getting a little bit of side-to-side movement here on my front wheel. I don't know if that's abnormal for this particular tractor, but that might be another reason why you might want to upgrade from the standard bushings to bearings. If your bushings are wore out, you might as well upgrade to something better. Okay, so I have the front of the tractor jacked up. I'm going to be using a heat gun and this little tool here to remove the dust cap. This is a cotter pin extractor tool made by Craftsman. So I'm just going to put the heat on low, get this a little bit softened up. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and clean this grease off so I can see what I'm doing. I should be able to take off this little E-clip just with a screwdriver. Just going to stick it in there and turn the screwdriver to pop it out. Okay, so this washer should pop off now. This is actually two washers together. And then this is the bushing inside the wheel. So now we can get the wheel off. Just like that, pretty easy. Looking at the axle shaft, I have a little bit of visible wear here on the top where the bushing was sitting, but it's not too bad. It's not really scarred. There's just a bit of a wear mark. So I think this axle shaft is going to be okay. And then don't forget, down in here you have a washer, smaller washer that needs to be removed. Now this isn't strictly necessary, but I'm going to go ahead and spray a little bit of this penetrating oil down into the bushing just to make it a little easier, hopefully, to pull out of there. Go ahead and get the other side as well. Okay, I'm going to try using an old socket extender, just a 3/8 socket extender, to get the bushing from the other side of the wheel knocked out of there. There we go. So there's the old bushing. So now I just need to swap the wheel over to the other side, and we'll knock this one out. All right, so there we go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clean the grease out of the wheel before putting the new bearings in. Okay, so let's take a look at the hardware. So this top row here is just the original OEM hardware for one wheel, and the bottom row here I took out of the bearing upgrade kit. I wanted to point out that I noticed a discrepancy between the instructions and one of the diagrams with regards to the way the washers and bearings are in sequence here. So as I move from the inside of the wheel to the outside of the wheel, I have these small washers on either side of the bearings, and then this large washer goes on the outside of that, on the outside of the wheel. Whereas the instructions tell you to put these two small washers on the inside of the wheel. Well, I'm going to do it this way, and the reason for that is you notice that this is the sequence for the original OEM setup, and I wanted to match that, so you have two washers on the outside there. So this is the way I'm doing it. Your mower may be different, or your instructions may be different if you get a different kit. I just wanted to point that out, something to keep in mind. So these washers are made of hardened steel. That's because they're going to be sitting next to these rotating bearings, so you don't want to use just any old washer for this. And there are a lot of these bearing upgrade kits on Amazon. I've looked through a lot of them. I read a lot of reviews, and I noticed there are a lot of complaints with regards to bearing fitment. Now, it could be that some folks are using axles or wheel hubs that are out of spec, and that would cause poor fitment, but I think that some of these kits are probably shipping bearings with questionable manufacturing tolerances, and so we're going to check that here shortly on this kit. Now, another complaint that I saw was with regards to the E-clip, and some people are claiming that their E-clips were really thin and flimsy and broke rather quickly, and this one is noticeably thicker and heavier than the original E-clip, so that's good. And then the dust cap is pretty standard. This one's new and flexible, whereas the original one is hard. It's hardened over time. This one's a bit taller than the old one, but I think that's okay. It's going to help it to hold on to the hub a bit better. And it seems to be about the same thickness as the original one. So I think this is going to be good. I believe this is a good quality kit. It had high ratings on Amazon. I didn't see as many negative comments with regards to fitment and some of the other things, but time will tell how well this holds up to everyday use. Okay, so I went ahead and took measurements of the inside and outside diameters of the four bearings here, and they're all pretty much identical. So according to the specs, the inside diameter should be about 3/4 of an inch. And you can see we're just slightly over 3/4 of an inch on the inside diameter. The outside diameter should be 1 3/8 or 1.375 inches. So let's see what we have there. And we're just slightly above, again about 1/1000ths over 1 3/8, or at least according to this caliper. So let's go check out the mower and see what it looks like. Okay, so the axle shaft here should be 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Let's take a measurement and see what we get. So I'm at 0.7501, so 1/1000th over, or maybe 2/1000ths, over 3/4 of an inch. So let's take a measurement here on the inside of the hub. Again, this should be 1.375 inches. Let's see what we get here. 1.369 or 1.370, so very slightly less than 1 3/8. And that's a pretty good reason why you might want to check your measurements. You may think that your bearing is out of spec, but it actually may be your lawnmower components, and that's a great fit there. So you want it to be a little loose, not wobbling around, but you don't want it to be super tight on the axle, because once you get the bearings installed into the wheels, you want to be able to take the wheel on and off easily. So I think that's going to be a good fit there. And you want it to be snug inside the wheel. And I think that's going to be just about perfect. Of course, I'm going to be hammering in the bearings, so you expect it to be tight. And again, you want it to be tight because you don't want the outside of the bearings to be spinning around inside the wheel, or you don't want any slop in there. So I think this is going to work out just fine. So you do have some options on how you may want to install these bearings. These are sealed bearings, so you have a rubber seal here, and of course you have lubrication on the inside of the bearing. So technically you don't need to grease these at all. You can just put them in as they are and forego greasing the inside of the hub later. But of course this rubber seal and the lubrication inside is going to break down over time. So another option would be to take a knife, a razor knife or something, and pull out that rubber seal on the inside of each bearing and then install it that way. And then go ahead and continue to grease as you normally would during your maintenance intervals. And that way fresh grease always will make its way into the bearing, and they'll last a very long time that way. Now I'm going to do a slightly different option because I'm kind of curious just to see how long these bearings are going to last as they are without removing the seal or adding fresh grease. So I'm going to put them in as they are, but I'm going to go ahead and continue to grease my hub here during my maintenance intervals, just because I don't want dirt and debris and water making its way inside the hub and onto the axle shaft and causing any problems there. So it should be obvious, but this bearing will only fit in one way, and that's with the flange here, this little lip on the outside of the wheel. So it goes in like that. Now, again, I saw some reviews on Amazon that had pictures of people who had broken off their flange off of their bearing. And I think the only way to do that is to have excessive force on the very outside rim of this bearing here. So to protect from doing that, I have a socket which fits just about perfectly. This is a 1 1/16 inch socket, and that makes contact to the outside of the bearing there without actually making contact to the edge of that lip. So I think that's going to work really well. And then I have some just standard penetrating oil. I want to spray the outside of this bearing just to help to reduce the friction a little bit, and that should help to drive it home a little bit easier into the wheel. Okay, so that wasn't too hard. I'm just going to go ahead and flip it around and do the same for the other side. Okay, so there we have it. Have the bearings in there, they're fitting in nice and flush. Okay, well, I got my general purpose grease here. So I'm going to start by putting a bit of grease here on the shaft and back down in there. And next the small washer will go on. I'll put some grease on it. And that's going to go all the way back in there. Now I can go ahead and get the wheel put on. And then the second small washer will be next. I'm going to go ahead and put some grease on it as well. And that'll go up against the bearing. And then the large washer will go there. And now I just need to get the E-clip on. You can see how freely it spins. Now next I need to install the dust cap. Okay, that's a pretty good fit. So just for reference, the original bushings and the mower here have about 179 hours on them, and they're still in reasonably good shape. In fact, I just finished off the 175-hour maintenance, and all the bushings got fresh grease, and they're still spinning pretty smoothly. But I wanted to find out if replacing even good bushings here with new bearings would give me any improvement at all. But I don't really have any scientific way to do that, so I thought I would just give it the old Price is Right wheel spin, and I'll time to see how much time it takes to stop spinning with the wheel that still has the original bushings versus the wheel that I just installed bearings in. So I've done a few of these spin tests now, and thus far this wheel here with the new bearings is spinning for roughly twice as long as the wheel on the other side with the original bushings. But I also noticed that since I installed this dust cap, this wheel here is not spinning quite as freely as it was. And I think what's going on here is that this is a brand new dust cap, and it fits rather snugly around the hub and around the end washer, which is stationary. So as the wheel rotates, I think it's making contact with the washer, causing internal friction and slowing down the wheel just a bit. Now that's not going to be a problem once this breaks in a bit, because I'm not seeing that issue with the old dust cap. So just to make the test a little bit more fair, I decided to do the next run with the dust caps removed. And here's the wheel with the original bushings. All right, had just about 34 or 35 seconds there. Okay, and then here's the wheel with the new bearings. Okay, got about 1 minute and 43 seconds. That's a big improvement. Well, those are pretty interesting results. I definitely saw a measurable improvement by upgrading to these new bearings over the original bushings, even though the original bushings are still in good shape and had fresh grease. So I imagine that if your bushings are wore out, or if you're operating with old dirty grease, you're going to see an even bigger improvement. I've installed wheel bearings in both the front wheels now, and some people have claimed that after installing bearings in the front, that it made the tractor easier to push around when it's in neutral. Now I can understand that, I guess, if your original bushings have completely wore out, or if maybe they're partially seized. But personally, I think most of the rolling resistance of the tractor is coming from the transmission. And to be honest, I don't really see much of a difference just rolling it out here on this flat surface. All right, I got a little break between the storms here, so I'm going to go ahead and hop on the tractor and see how it handles. Well, I don't know if it's just my imagination, but upgrading those bushings to bearings definitely did seem to help the steering effort. It seemed to be quicker to turn in. It's a bit smoother now, and it takes almost no effort to make those sharp turns. Now, I think is a pretty good complement to the needle bearing upgrade that I did some time ago. And I don't know how well this translates to reducing the effort on the other steering components, but overall I think it's a worthwhile upgrade, especially if you need to replace your bushings anyway. Plus, it was a cheap and pretty easy upgrade, and didn't take a lot of time. So that's about all I have for today's video. I hope this was useful, and we'll see you next time.